On New Year's Eve, while the city counted down in light and laughter, a broken billionaire walked into a dark alley and found a 6-year-old girl sleeping in a cardboard box. One whispered sentence, "I don't have a home," shattered his grief and ignited a fight no amount of money could stop. Chicago welcomed the new year like it always did. Loud, glowing, convinced joy could be manufactured by fireworks and countdowns. The streets shimmered with reflected light, champagne spilled onto frozen sidewalks. Laughter rose in bright waves that felt rehearsed and contagious. Everyone was celebrating. Everyone except Calder Voss. At 39, Calder owned buildings with his name etched into steel and glass. His company dominated headlines. His success was the kind people pointed at and called proof. But tonight, none of it followed him. He walked alone, hands buried deep in his coat pockets, moving against the current of celebration, as if the crowd itself might push him back into a life he no longer recognized. 1 year ago, this exact night, the city had sounded the same. Sirens instead of fireworks, metal instead of music. A red light ignored, a car that didn't stop, his wife's hand slipping from his grasp, his daughter's small body going impossibly still before help arrived. Calder stopped walking. The countdown echoed from a nearby plaza. 10, 9, 8. He closed his eyes. The fireworks cracked the sky open, but Calder didn't look. He stood unmoving while strangers hugged, kissed, cried tears of joy. Someone bumped into him, apologized, moved on. No one noticed the man standing perfectly still while the world welcomed a year he had survived, but never lived. He had sold the house where laughter once lived. He had sealed his daughter's bedroom and locked the grief inside with it. Tonight he didn't want walls. He didn't want silence that echoed back his memories. So he walked, not toward anything, just away from everything. With every block Calder walked, the city softened. Music blurred into distant noise. Neon signs dimmed. Laughter thinned until it felt like a rumor instead of a promise. His phone vibrated inside his pocket, messages from the board, from executives, from people who needed him to be composed, decisive, unbreakable. He ignored them all. Tonight wasn't for responsibility. Tonight belonged to the things he'd lost. Calder turned onto a narrow side street where streetlights stood farther apart, their glow weak and uneven. A restaurant window glowed warmly to his right. Inside, families leaned close together, children waving sparklers against the glass. A little girl laughed too loudly, her face flushed, hands sticky with dessert. Calder slowed. For a split second, his reflection merged with the scene. His dark coat, hollow eyes standing among ghosts who didn't know he was watching. Memory betrayed him. He saw his daughter there instead, legs swinging beneath the table, impatience bright in her smile. "Daddy, can we stay up until midnight, just 5 more minutes?" Calder turned away before the memory finished him. The street grew colder. The air sharpened, scraping his lungs with every breath. He shoved his hands deeper into his pockets and kept walking, footsteps echoing too loudly in the quiet. Then he noticed the alley. Narrow, unlit, forgotten. Wind moved through it, carrying the smell of damp cardboard and old paper. Calder would have passed it. He almost did. But something stopped him, not a voice, not a cry, just movement. A soft rustle like someone trying very hard not to be seen. Calder's heart reacted before his mind did. He turned and stepped into the dark. The alley was colder than the street, the wind funneling through the narrow space with quiet insistence. Loose paper rattled against brick. Calder took careful steps forward, shoes crunching softly over gravel and broken glass. Then he saw it. A cardboard box reinforced with duct tape slumped against the wall. A torn blanket, once blue, half covered it. The box moved. Calder crouched instinctively, his breath catching. "Hey," he said softly, keeping his voice low. "It's okay. I'm not going to scare you." The box shifted again. 2 eyes appeared in the darkness, wide, alert, watching him the way animals watch traps. A small face followed dirt-smudged cheeks, chapped lips, hair tucked beneath a knit hat that was clearly too big. She couldn't have been more than 6. Calder slowly removed his gloves and held up his hands, palms open visible. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "I promise." She didn't answer. Her body was curled tight inside the box, knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped around herself like armor. Calder noticed her fingers red from the cold trembling, despite her effort to stay still. "What's your name?" he asked gently. Silence stretched. Finally, a small voice emerged, flat-tired beyond its years. "Ren." The sound of it cracked something inside him. "Hi, Ren," Calder said, nodding like names mattered. "I'm Calder." She studied him for a long moment. Then she asked the question no child should ever need to ask. "Are you going to make me leave?" Calder opened his mouth to answer, but she spoke again, first. Her voice barely a whisper. "I don't have a home." The words hit him like a physical blow. Calder dropped to one knee on the frozen ground, right there in the forgotten alley, as fireworks thundered overhead. And for the first time in a year, he cried. Calder stayed on one knee, the cold biting through his trousers, grounding him in the moment. He didn't reach for Ren. He didn't rush to fix anything. He let the silence breathe because he could feel how quickly silence had learned to hurt her. "Thank you for telling me," he said at last. Not "I'm sorry." Not "that's terrible," just thanks, like her truth mattered. Ren didn't relax. She watched him closely, eyes tracking every movement, every breath. Calder noticed the way her gaze calculated distance, the way she stayed angled toward the open alley, an escape already mapped. "It's really cold tonight," Calder said, stating the obvious without judgment. Slowly, carefully, he slipped off his coat and held it out between them, not toward her, not touching her. An offering, not an invasion. Ren stared at it. "You don't have to," she said. "It's nice." "I know," Calder replied. "You can give it back any time." She didn't take it. "Not yet." Her voice dropped. "Is it a trick?" The question landed quietly but hard. Calder shook his head immediately. "No tricks. I won't surprise you. If something changes, I'll tell you first." That made her hesitate. People didn't usually explain things before they happened. Finally, she reached out with one hand, touched the sleeve, then pulled back like she'd been burned. After a long beat, she wrapped the coat around herself, inhaling carefully, like warmth was something that might disappear if she trusted it too much. Calder noticed her shoes then. Thin soles, one lace missing. He didn't comment. He didn't want her to feel seen in the wrong way. "Are you hungry?" he asked gently. Ren shrugged. "Sometimes." "Would you like something warm?" Calder asked. "You can say no." She looked past him, up at the glow of fireworks flickering above the alley walls. "People don't feel nice on nights like this," she said. "They're busy being happy." Calder followed her gaze. The city celebrated above them, unaware. He made a decision, not fast, not dramatic, but real. "Then let's go somewhere warm," he said. "Just for tonight." Ren's shoulders tightened instantly. "If I go?" she asked carefully. "Do you call someone?" Calder didn't pretend not to understand. "I won't do anything without telling you," he said. "We'll do things the right way." Slowly. She studied his face, searching for the edge of a lie. "They always say that," she murmured. "Then they do it anyway." Calder nodded once. "I believe you." That surprised her. Not sympathy, recognition. "How do you know?" she asked. Calder hesitated. Honesty felt risky, but lies felt worse. "I lost my family," he said quietly. "After that, a lot of people decided things for me. Most of them didn't ask what I wanted." Ren absorbed that, her expression shifting, not softer, just more aware. "Do they come back?" she asked suddenly. Calder knew exactly who she meant. "No," he answered. "They don't." Ren looked down at the cardboard beneath her. "My mom said if I stayed brave, she'd come back," she whispered. I stayed brave a long time. Something caved in inside him. Calder took a breath. I know a place nearby, he said gently. It's warm. There's food. You can leave whenever you want. Her eyes flicked up. Is it a shelter? No, he said. A house. Her silence stretched thin. If I go, she said slowly, and I don't like it, can I come back here? The question hurt more than if she'd screamed. Yes, Calder said immediately. I won't stop you. Wren glanced at the box, the thin blanket, the dark. Then she nodded once. Okay, she said, but I'm not staying forever. Calder stood carefully and offered his hand, not too close. That's fair. She stared at it, weighing trust like currency. Finally, she placed her small hand in his. It was freezing. Calder closed his fingers gently around it, afraid of breaking something fragile that had survived too much already. Let's go, he said. And together they stepped out of the alley. The city looked different from inside the car. Wren sat in the back seat, knees tucked up Calder's coat, wrapped around her like a cocoon. She pressed her forehead lightly to the window, watching fireworks burst between buildings, bright flowers blooming and disappearing before they could be trusted. They're loud, she said. They won't hurt you, Calder replied, glancing at her in the mirror. I know, she said after a pause. I just don't like surprises. Calder nodded. He understood more than she realized. They drove through streets thick with celebration people, shouting, laughing, counting down again and again, as if time could be reset by joy alone. Wren watched quietly. Is it your birthday? She asked suddenly. Calder blinked. No. Oh, she said. Everyone looks like it is. He almost smiled. The car turned into a quieter neighborhood. Tall gates, trees dusted with winter frost, warm light glowing behind large windows. Wren sat up straighter. Is this where you live? Yes? Her eyes widened. It's really big. It used to be louder, Calder said. Before. He parked and stepped out first, then opened the back door slowly. Wren hesitated. What if I break something? She asked. You won't, Calder said. And if you do, it's just a thing. She nodded, stepping onto the driveway, staring up at the house like it might vanish if she blinked too long. Inside, silence wrapped around them, not empty, just unused. It echoes, Wren whispered. Calder turned on the lights, one room at a time. I'll make something warm, he said. You don't have to eat if you don't want to. But when he returned with soup, Wren didn't hesitate. She ate slowly, carefully, like trust was something you learned with a spoon. And across the table, Calder realized the house wasn't empty anymore. The house settled around them as midnight passed, a quiet so deep it felt unfamiliar. Calder moved slowly, narrating his actions the way one does around skittish animals or fragile truths. I'm going to show you a room, he said. You can decide. Wren followed a step behind, careful eyes tracking shadows. The guest room was simple, clean sheets, a small lamp, a window dusted with frost. To Calder, it was unused space. To Wren, it was a different planet. She stopped at the doorway. This is where I sleep, she asked. If you want, Calder said. Nothing here is permanent unless you choose it. She stepped inside with caution. Her shoes sank slightly into the carpet. She froze, lifted one foot, stared at it like it had betrayed her. It's soft, she said, confused. Calder nodded. You don't have to worry about noise here. That troubled her more than comforted her. No noise, she asked, not even yelling. No yelling. Calder replied quietly. Wren sat on the edge of the bed, not lying down, not relaxing, perched like someone waiting for instructions that never came. Calder placed a folded blanket beside her. You can use this too. She touched it, then pulled her hand back. If I sleep, she asked, voice small but steady, will you still be here when I wake up? The question hit him harder than any memory had. Yes, Calder answered without hesitation. I'll be here, She nodded, accepting the answer, but not fully believing it. Door open or closed, he asked. Wren thought carefully. Half, she decided. So I can hear if something changes. Calder left the door halfway open, the hallway light spilling softly into the room. As he stepped away, he paused, listening. At first, Wren didn't move. Then slowly, the rustle of sheets. A small sigh. Calder leaned against the wall outside, forehead pressed to the cool surface. For the first time in a year, someone else was breathing in his house, and the silence didn't feel like punishment. Calder woke before dawn, habit pulling him from shallow sleep. For a moment, he lay still, disoriented by a new feeling, alert, but not hollow. Then he remembered. He walked quietly down the hall and stopped just short of the doorway. The door was still half open. Wren was still there. She lay curled on her side, Calder's coat folded beneath her head, like a pillow, one small hand gripping the blanket as if it might escape. Her breathing was slow, even. Calder exhaled. Downstairs, he prepared breakfast with deliberate care, no clattering, no sudden movements. When he returned with toast and warm milk, Wren was already sitting up, eyes wide, fully awake. I didn't hear you leave, she said. I didn't, Calder replied. I was downstairs. She studied his face carefully, then nodded once. You came back, she said, as if confirming a rule. They sat together at the kitchen table. Wren ate slowly, watching the food between bites like she needed to be sure it stayed real. When she finished, she pushed the plate away politely. Thank you, she said. I don't want to take too much. You don't have to worry about that, Calder replied. There's always more. She frowned slightly. Always, yes. Wren looked down at her hands. That's new. Calder hesitated, then asked gently, Do you want to tell me how long you've been on your own? She shrugged. After the fire people said they'd help, then they didn't come back. Her voice was flat, practiced. I tried staying where people were, she continued. They didn't like me sleeping there. So I found the alley. It's quiet. No one should have to learn how to disappear, Calder said softly. Wren looked up. I'm good at it. I don't want you to be, Calder replied. The words surprised them both. After breakfast, Calder showed Wren the rest of the house, not as a tour, but as an invitation. She walked close enough that he could feel her presence without touching her. Every room held echoes of another life, shelves, untouched furniture arranged for people who no longer needed it. Wren noticed everything. This room feels sad, she said quietly as they passed the living room. Calder stopped. He hadn't realized how obvious it was. It used to be loud, he said. My daughter played here. Wren looked up at him. Where is she now? Calder swallowed. The truth pressed against his throat. She died, he said. A year ago. Wren didn't look away. She didn't offer comfort the way adults did. She simply nodded. I'm sorry, she said. Did it hurt? Yes, Calder answered. It still does. Wren nodded again. My parents died too, she said. That's why I didn't go home. They stood together in the quiet, two griefs overlapping without competition. Calder opened a door at the end of the hallway. A small bedroom lay frozen in time, neat, untouched. Wren stood at the threshold. You don't go in there, she observed. No, Calder said. I couldn't. She was loved, Wren said. You can tell. Calder closed his eyes briefly. You don't have to be alone because of it. Wren added, simple and devastating. Calder knelt to her level. I don't want you to feel like you have to stay because I'm sad. Wren shook her head. I want to stay because I'm tired of leaving. Outside, the last smoke from the fireworks drifted away. Inside, something fragile but real began to form. That night, when Calder passed Wren's door, he left it open a little wider than before. And when she stirred in her sleep, she didn't call out. She knew he was still there. By mid-morning, the outside world remembered Calder Voss. His phone vibrated on the kitchen counter once, twice, then relentlessly, until the screen lit up with names he hadn't answered in days. Board members, legal counsel, assistants trained to sound calm while delivering pressure. Calder turned the phone face down. Across the table, Wren sat coloring with pencils he'd found in a forgotten drawer. She didn't ask whose they were. She didn't need to. She drew houses again this time, with smoke curling from chimneys, windows glowing yellow, doors wide open. "Those look warm," Calder said. "They are," Wren replied. "People stay inside them." The phone buzzed again. Calder inhaled slowly and knelt beside her chair. "Wren," he said gently, "I need to go to work for a few hours." Her pencil stopped moving. "Will you come back?" she asked, not looking up. "Yes," Calder said, steady. "I promise." She nodded, then added quietly, "I'll stay where you can find me." The words followed him all the way to the office. The boardroom was polished and cold glass steel efficiency. Everything his house was not. Executives sat upright, tablets, open expressions, carefully neutral. At the far end of the table sat Gideon Voss, Calder's Uncle Hans, folded as if nothing in the world could surprise him. "You're late," Gideon said mildly. "So is this conversation," Calder replied. A ripple of tension moved through the room. Elaine Hart cleared her throat. "There have been concerns about performance, about perception of what Calder asked." Gideon leaned forward just slightly, "of unpredictability." Calder didn't pretend confusion. "I took in a child." Murmurs followed. "A homeless child," someone added. "A liability," another said. Calder's jaw tightened. "She's 6. Gideon smiled thinly. "You are the face of this company, Calder. Investors don't respond well to surprises. Sympathy doesn't translate to profit." "My father built this company on integrity," Calder said. Gideon's eyes sharpened. "Your father built it on control." The words landed like a challenge. Calder stood. "We're done for today." As he left, he knew something had shifted. The world hadn't just knocked. It had noticed. At home, Wren sat exactly where she said she would, at the kitchen table, surrounded by drawings. She looked up the moment the door opened. "You came back," she said. Calder crossed the room in 2 strides and knelt in front of her. "Always." Relief flickered across her face, quick and unguarded. She held up a drawing, 2 figures standing beside a house. "That's you," she said, pointing. "And that's me." Calder swallowed hard. The knock came later that afternoon. Not loud, not urgent, official. Calder knew before he opened the door. A woman stood outside in a winter coat badge, visible expression calm. "Mr. Voss, I'm Tanya Ruiz with Child and Family Services. May we talk?" Wren appeared behind Calder, her small hands gripping the back of his shirt. He felt the tremor before he heard her breath change. "Yes," Calder said, stepping aside. "Come in." They sat in the living room. Tanya asked questions the way professionals do about routines, food school plans, feelings of safety. No threats, no raised voices, just careful listening. Wren sat close to Calder, eyes down. "Wren," Tanya said gently, "do you know why I'm here?" Wren nodded. "You're checking if I'm okay." "And are you?" Wren thought for a moment. "I sleep in a bed," she said. "He explains things. He doesn't yell." Tanya smiled slightly and wrote something down. When the questions ended, Tanya closed her notebook. "The next steps are about making this stable and legal," she said. "Guardianship, school enrollment, support." Wren's grip tightened. Calder placed a hand over hers. "That's okay," he said softly. "That's adults doing things the right way." After Tanya left, Wren whispered, "They're not taking me." "No," Calder said. "They're making sure you're safe." She leaned into him, testing whether he'd move away. He didn't. That night, the house felt different, not unsafe, but alert. Wren sat on the living room rug, coloring the same house over and over, pressing the crayon harder than before. Calder noticed immediately. Children spoke louder in silence. You don't have to tell me anything, he said, sitting nearby. But I'm here. Wren didn't look up. Nice things don't always stay, she said. Calder felt the truth of it lodge in his chest. Then I'll be the first nice thing that stays, he replied. She paused, then leaned her head against his arm, careful testing. He stayed still until her shoulders relaxed. Later, Calder's phone rang again. Elaine Hart's voice was formal. The board is requesting an emergency meeting. Because of me, Calder said calmly. Because of exposure, she corrected. Social services, press inquiries. Investors are nervous. Calder glanced at Wren, asleep on the couch blanket tucked to her chin. I won't resolve this by sending a child away. Silence on the line. We'll discuss options, Elaine said at last. Options. Calder ended the call and stared at the darkened window. Somewhere Gideon was already moving pieces. Calder could feel it, the slow, patient tightening of a trap disguised as concern. He walked down the hall and stopped outside his late daughter's room. He didn't open the door. He didn't need to. He knew why he was choosing this fight. When he returned, Wren stirred slightly in her sleep. Calder, she murmured. I'm here, he whispered. Her hand reached out, catching his sleeve. Don't disappear. I won't, he said this time, not as a promise, but a decision. Outside forces aligned quietly. Inside, Calder chose his side. The boardroom felt smaller this time. Not physically, its glass walls still stretched high above the city, but emotionally like the air itself had been compressed. Calder Voss stood at the end of the table, hands loosely clasped behind his back, listening to people speak as if they were discussing a spreadsheet instead of a human life. Elaine Hart didn't waste time. We've reviewed the situation, she said, voice even. The presence of a minor in your home has created exposure. Calder met her gaze. A child isn't exposure. She's a responsibility. Several executives shifted uncomfortably. Gideon Voss remained still, composed, fingers folded. He looked bored, like a man waiting for gravity to do its work. James Calder. Elaine corrected herself. This isn't about morality. It's about leadership stability. Calder nodded slowly. Then say what you mean. Gideon finally spoke. You're grieving, he said gently. And grief makes people impulsive. Investors are worried you're making decisions driven by emotion, not judgment. Calder felt the insult settle in his chest, heavy but clarifying. If judgment means abandoning a child to protect optics, he replied, then I'm comfortable being judged poorly. A murmur rippled through the room. Elaine slid a folder across the table. This is a solution. Temporary placement, private, quiet. You maintain distance while legal matters proceed. Calder didn't open it. Gideon leaned back. Think of it as responsible delegation. You don't have to raise her. You just have to let professionals handle it. Calder's voice stayed calm. She's not a problem to be handled. Silence followed. Elaine exhaled. If you refuse to cooperate, the board may be forced to act. Calder straightened, then act. That did it. Gideon's eyes sharpened. Be careful, he said. You've already lost a family once. Don't be reckless enough to lose everything else. The words were quiet, surgical. Calder stepped closer to the table. You're right, he said. I did lose everything once. That's why I won't do it again, especially not on purpose. He turned and walked out without waiting for dismissal. Outside, the city moved as if nothing had happened. Traffic flowed. People laughed. Calder felt the weight of the choice settle fully now. He hadn't just crossed a line. He'd erased it. At home, the house greeted Calder with a familiar quiet one that no longer felt empty, just watchful. Wren sat on the floor near the window, lining up paper stars she had cut herself. She looked up when he entered, reading his face the way she always did now. You're carrying rocks again, she said. Calder paused. Is it that obvious? She nodded. Your shoulders do that. He sat down beside her, not too close. Some grown-ups are upset with me. Because of me, she asked, not accusing. Curious. Calder considered his words carefully. Because they think caring about people makes things messy. Ren frowned. People are messy, he smiled faintly. Exactly. She returned to her stars, placing them carefully near the window. If I have to go somewhere else, she said suddenly, I can pack fast. The sentence landed like a dropped glass. You don't have to pack, Calder said gently. She didn't look at him. I like being ready. Calder felt the urge to promise too much rise in his throat and resisted it. Instead, he offered something steadier. If anyone ever tells you something is changing, he said, you'll hear it from me first. Ren nodded, absorbing the rule. Okay. Later that night, she fell asleep on the couch, her head resting against his side. Calder didn't move. He watched the rhythm of her breathing until it synced with his own. When he finally carried her to bed, she stirred and murmured, You stayed. Yes, he whispered. I stayed. Downstairs, Calder opened his laptop and began making calls not to appease the board, but to prepare. Attorneys, auditors, people who had believed in his father long before Gideon learned how to smile in meetings. Patterns emerged quickly. Quiet transfers, proxy votes, influence siphoned over years, waiting for a moment of weakness. Gideon hadn't just reacted to Ren. He'd been waiting for Calder to falter. Calder closed the laptop and leaned back, the shape of the battle finally clear. This wasn't about a child complicating business. It was about a man who believed control mattered more than care. Calder looked down the hall toward Ren's room. The door was open wider now. He understood then that Gideon wasn't just a threat to the company. He was a threat to the only thing that had pulled Calder back from the edge. And that was something Calder Voss would never negotiate. The emergency meeting came 2 days later. This time Calder arrived early. The boardroom filled, slowly, tension thick enough to taste. Gideon sat near the head of the table, calm as ever. Elaine Hart opened without preamble. The board has voted, she said. Effective immediately, operational control will be transferred pending review. Calder didn't react. This is temporary, Gideon added smoothly. Resolve the situation and we can discuss reinstatement. Calder leaned forward. You mean if I give her up? Silence. Elaine didn't deny it. Calder straightened. Then this isn't temporary. Gideon's voice softened. You're choosing emotion over legacy. Calder met his uncle's eyes. No, I'm choosing legacy. That means something. He stood. I won't trade a child's safety for a title. Elaine's expression hardened. Then you leave us no choice. Calder nodded once. Then I lose the company. He walked out as votes were recorded behind him, numbers replacing loyalty. At home, Ren waited by the window. You came back, she said, relief immediate. Calder knelt in front of her, the weight of everything he'd lost heavy on his shoulders, but clear. I did, he said, and I always will. She wrapped her arms around his neck, sudden and fierce. I don't like bad men, she whispered. They always say they're helping. Calder held her tightly. I know. That afternoon, the news broke. Headlines sharpened the story into spectacle. Calder ignored it all. He made one statement, calm and brief. I found a child who needed safety. I provided it. If that costs me my position, so be it. That night, the house was quiet again, but not fragile. Calder sat beside Ren as she drew one more house. Bigger this time. Lights in every window. What happens now? She asked. We build something honest, Calder replied. Even if it's smaller. Ren nodded. Small things can still be strong, Calder smiled because she was right. Outside, the empire recalibrated without him. Inside, a family began. The first headline hit before noon. Calder Voss was in the kitchen when his phone lit up with a notification he didn't subscribe to. Someone had made sure it found him anyway. A financial outlet. A clean, sharp sentence that pretended to be neutral while feeding on human softness. Billionaire CEO suspended amid unstable personal decisions. Calder stared at the words until they blurred into meaninglessness, then turned the phone face down like a toxin. Across the table, Wren was drawing again, pencil moving carefully, as if she could build certainty with lines. She had chosen the brightest yellow for the windows this time. The house she drew wasn't large. It was sturdy. It had a porch. It had 2 cups on a table inside. Calder sat down slowly, making sure his voice didn't carry the weight he felt. "Hey," he said softly. "People might talk about us today." Wren didn't stop drawing. "Do they know me?" "No," Calder said. "They don't know anything real." Wren's pencil paused. "Then why are they talking?" Calder exhaled. Children asked questions like they were holding up a mirror. Adults avoided questions like they were stepping around broken glass. "Because some people think money makes them entitled to other people's choices," he answered. "And because some people think kindness is a weakness." Wren frowned, then returned to her drawing. "Kindness is not weak," she said, as if she had to test the sentence before trusting it. "It's not," Calder agreed. "It's just expensive sometimes." The doorbell rang. Wren flinched, not dramatically, not loudly, just a small tightening of shoulders, an instinctive pause. Calder noticed and hated how much he noticed. He stood and crossed the room with deliberate calm. When he opened the door, it was not a crowd, not cameras, not chaos. It was Marisol Chen, his attorney, holding a slim folder and wearing a coat dusted with snow. "Hi," she said warmly. "I brought boring paperwork and good news." Wren appeared behind Calder, peeking around his elbow. Marisol lowered herself slightly, not crouching like a performance, just meeting Wren at a respectful level. "You must be Wren," she said. "I'm Marisol. I help families with rules that are hard to understand." Wren blinked. "Are you the kind of grown-up who explains things?" Marisol smiled, surprised and touched. "That's exactly my job." They sat at the table. Marisol laid out steps like stones across a river: temporary guardianship petition, home study schedule, school enrollment plan, pediatric checkup appointment, references from community members. Everything lawful, everything child-centered, everything designed to stabilize, not to yank, not to hide. Wren listened quietly, absorbing phrases she didn't fully know, but recognizing the tone: calm, structured, safe. "Do I have to leave?" she asked finally, voice steady but small. Calder's hand moved slowly to the table, stopping close to hers. Not grabbing, not trapping. "No," he said. "You're staying right here while we do this the right way." Marisol nodded. "And Wren," she added gently, "you'll have choices too. We'll make sure you understand each step. No surprises." Wren's shoulders softened a fraction. She returned to her drawing and added a doorbell to the porch, then drew it with a tiny label: "Knock first." Marisol watched the pencil work and looked at Calder. "She's brilliant," she said quietly. "She's cautious," Calder replied. "Because the world taught her to be." Marisol opened another page in her folder. "The board is pushing a narrative," she said. "We push reality. Calmly. Publicly if we have to." That afternoon, as reporters called and commentators speculated, Calder stayed home. He made soup. He answered Wren's questions. He didn't rage. He didn't spiral. He simply held the shape of the day. Even when a camera van rolled slowly past the gate, even when his name was dragged through strangers' opinions, the house did what it had learned to do. It held. And in that holding, Wren drew one more window and shaded it carefully, like she was daring the world to dim it. By evening, the narrative had sharpened into something ugly in its politeness. Is he fit to lead? Is this an impulsive grief response? Is this a publicity move? It was amazing what people could say when they didn't have to look a child in the eyes. Marisol sat with Calder in the study papers spread across a desk that once held only corporate plans. You have two choices, she said. Stay silent and let them define you, or speak once clean, clear, and controlled. Calder looked past her at the framed photo on the bookshelf. His late wife's smile caught mid-laugh his daughter's small hand in his. He didn't touch the frame. He didn't need to. The memory was inside him now, not trapped behind glass. I'll speak once, Calder said. The next morning, he stood outside the courthouse, not for drama, but for clarity. No flashy stage, no loud music, just winter air and microphones. Marisol remained nearby, a steady presence, while Tanya Ruiz stood at a respectful distance, visible proof that the process was legitimate, not hidden. Ren did not stand in front of cameras. She stayed inside with a trusted advocate and warm cocoa protected from spectacle. Calder would not use her as a shield. Calder faced the press with the calm of someone who has already lost what matters most and refuses to lose what matters now. I found a child sleeping in a cardboard box on New Year's Eve, he said evenly. She was cold. She was alone. I brought her somewhere safe because leaving her there would have been immoral. Questions flew. Did the board pressure you? Are you unstable? Is this a stunt? Calder held his hands clasped in front of him, posture steady. I'm not asking for applause, he said. I'm asking for perspective. If being a leader requires abandoning a child to protect profit, then leadership is meaningless. A reporter asked, "Are you trying to adopt her?" Calder didn't flinch. "I'm pursuing lawful guardianship," he said. "Because stability isn't a speech. It's paperwork, routines, school doctors, accountability. That's what we're doing." Then he stopped. No long monologue, no arguing. He stepped back and left. Inside the house, Ren watched a clipped replay on mute. Her eyes tracked Calder's face, not the words at the bottom of the screen. When he walked back in, she stood from the couch slowly, as if unsure whether she was allowed to hope. "They were mad," she asked. "Some," Calder admitted. "Because you didn't send me away?" she asked, still trying to understand the adult world. Calder knelt. "Because I didn't do what was convenient," he said. "Convenience is their language. Care is ours." Ren stared at him a long moment, then went to the table and unfolded a drawing she'd been hiding under her notebook. She slid it toward him. It was a house again, but this time the windows were brighter. A figure stood on the porch holding a smaller hand. Above the door she'd written in careful block letters, "Stay." Calder pressed the paper flat against his chest. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. That night, Marisol called with another piece of the puzzle. "The audit is moving fast," she said. "We're seeing patterns." Calder's voice was quiet. "Gideon, yes," Marisol confirmed. "Not rumors. Paper, signatures, proxy structures, the kind of planning you only do if you're waiting to take something." Calder looked down the hallway toward Ren's room. The door was open wider than ever now. A small nightlight glowed in the shape of a star. "He thought I'd fold," Calder said. Marisol's tone sharpened. "He misread you." Calder's jaw tightened, not with vengeance, but with focus. "He misread what love does," he said. "It doesn't make you weak. It makes you unmovable." In the dark, the house stayed quiet, not fragile, resolved. 3 days later, the board tried again. Elaine Hart called, voice practiced. "Calder, the company is bleeding confidence." Calder didn't raise his voice, then stopped stabbing it from the inside. A pause. "We can offer you a path back," Elaine said, "if you agree to distance yourself from the situation." Calder's gaze drifted to Ren at the dining table, carefully writing the alphabet on lined paper Marisol had brought. She whispered each letter as she wrote it, like building a bridge one plank at a time. "I won't," Calder said. Elaine's tone cooled. "Then this becomes adversarial." "It already is," Calder replied. "You just didn't say it out loud yet." He ended the call, then immediately called Marisol. "We file today," he said. "Everything." Marisol didn't hesitate. "Good," she said. "We file guardianship and we file corporate claims. Calm, clean, overwhelmingly documented." By afternoon, two worlds collided in the most modern way possible on screens. Financial outlets that had called Calder reckless began shifting tone as evidence surfaced, not gossip, not anonymous whispers, but verifiable records. Unusual share movements, proxy voting trails, internal memos framed as risk management that looked a lot like manipulation when read in daylight. Gideon's name appeared in the wrong places too often to be coincidence. Calder didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He simply felt something he hadn't felt in a year: clarity. That evening, Tanya Ruiz returned not with alarm, but with follow-up. She sat at the kitchen table again, calm as ever, and looked at Ren gently. "Hi, Ren," she said. "I'm back because the court likes updates. That's how adults make sure you stay safe." Ren nodded slowly. "I like updates," she said. Tanya smiled. "Me too." She asked Ren a few simple questions about routines: bedtime, meals, feelings, school plans. Ren answered without fear because no one was trapping her with questions. They were simply building a record of care. When Tanya finished, she turned to Calder. "You're doing this correctly," she said. "That matters." Calder's voice was soft. "I want her to feel stable, not hidden." "That's the right goal," Tanya agreed. "And Ren, this part is important," she added, turning back to the child. "If you ever have a worry, you can tell me. Grown-ups are supposed to listen." Ren thought a second. "Okay," she said. "My only worry is when people talk loud on TV." Tanya nodded. "That makes sense. Then we keep you away from the loud places." After she left, Ren crawled onto the couch beside Calder and tucked her legs under herself. "Do you think they'll stop?" she asked. Calder didn't lie. Not right away. Ren's face tightened slightly. "Because I'm inconvenient." Calder turned fully toward her. "No," he said firmly. "Because they don't like losing control. But you are not a problem. You are a person. And you deserve a home." Ren stared at him, eyes searching for the old pattern: adults saying pretty things before leaving. But Calder didn't fill the silence with promises. He filled it with presence. He stayed. Ren leaned in and rested her head against his shoulder, more weight than before, more trust than before. "Calder," she murmured. "Yeah. If you lose the big company," she said, "careful, do you still get to be—" Calder's throat tightened. He kissed the top of her knit hat gently, brief, respectful, safe. "I get to be the part of me that matters," he said. "The part that stays." Ren exhaled like she'd been holding air for years. Then she reached for her drawing and added 2 words above the porch she'd drawn earlier: "Our home." And for the first time since New Year's Eve, the battle outside didn't feel bigger than the warmth inside. The courtroom was smaller than Calder expected. Not cramped, just quiet in a way that demanded care. Wooden benches, soft light, the low hum of a building that had seen many decisions made without spectacle. Calder sat with Marisol Chen on one side. Across the aisle, the company's attorneys arranged their papers with practiced calm. Gideon Voss sat behind them, posture perfect, eyes unreadable. Ren sat a few seats away with a guardian advocate, feet not quite touching the floor. She wore the blue sweater she had chosen because it felt strong. She held a folded piece of paper in her lap and pressed it flat with both hands, like keeping something precious from floating away. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Everyone sat. The hearing moved carefully. Tanya Ruiz spoke first, measured, professional. She described routines, stability, predictability, meals eaten together, bedtimes explained in advance, questions answered without surprise, a child who slept through the night. Then Marisol spoke not about emotion but structure, temporary guardianship, oversight, school enrollment scheduled, medical checkups arranged, community references, everything in place, nothing hidden. When the other side spoke, the words were smooth and distant: risk, optics, uncertainty. They did not mention Ren by name. The judge listened, took notes, asked clarifying questions, calm questions. Then the judge turned to Ren. "Ren," she said gently, "would you like to tell me how things are going?" Ren stood slowly. No rush, no fear, just gravity. "I don't have a home to go back to," she said, voice clear. "I slept in a box before. It was cold." She paused, choosing what mattered. "Here I sleep in a bed. He explains things. He stays." She glanced toward Calder, not to ask permission, just to locate him in the room. He met her eyes and didn't nod, didn't move. He let her finish. "I'm not scared here," Ren added. "I can draw. I can ask questions." The room held its breath. The judge thanked her and asked her to sit. Ren did, carefully smoothing her sweater, as if tidying the moment. Calder spoke once when asked. "I'm not trying to replace anything I lost," he said evenly. "I'm trying to keep a promise I made to stay." The judge leaned back, reviewing notes. Gideon shifted for the first time. The room waited. The judge returned without ceremony. Her voice was calm, unadorned, like someone who understood that the loudest moments in life rarely needed volume. "Temporary guardianship is granted," she said. "Effective immediately." Ren blinked. Once. Twice. She didn't smile yet. She waited for the rest. "Proceedings for permanent placement may continue as scheduled," the judge added, "with continued oversight and support." A soft exhale moved through the room. Not applause, not relief made public. Just air returning. Calder closed his eyes briefly, not to hide tears, but to steady them. Marisol's hand rested on the table, still professional and warm. Gideon stood, lips pressed thin. He did not look at Ren. He gathered his papers as if collecting a miscalculation. Outside the courthouse, winter light stretched across the steps. Cameras waited at a distance. Calder answered no questions. He didn't need to. He knelt in front of Ren, bringing himself to her height. "Does this mean I can stay?" she asked, careful, practical. "Yes," Calder said. "For real. For now and for the steps after." She nodded, processing, then held up the folded paper she'd been keeping safe. She opened it and showed him. A house. Not large. Solid. 2 figures on a porch. Above the door, in careful block letters, "Home." Calder pressed the paper gently against his chest. "It's perfect," he said. They drove home without speaking much. The silence wasn't heavy. It was earned. When they arrived, Ren ran ahead to the front gate and stopped. There was a small wooden sign Calder had hung earlier that morning. He hadn't mentioned it. He hadn't wanted to rush the idea. "Voss Home." Ren traced the letters with her finger. "It says home," she whispered, as if confirming a spell worked. "Yes," Calder said. "It does." That night, Ren insisted on keeping her door open wider than before. Calder passed by, quietly pausing to watch her breathe, slow, even unafraid. Downstairs, the house creaked softly, settling into its new truth. Calder didn't celebrate. He made dinner. He washed dishes. He turned off lights, room by room. Stability, he had learned, was built with ordinary acts done consistently. And tonight, ordinary felt extraordinary. The city welcomed the new year again, 1 month later. Fireworks bloomed beyond the skyline, bright, distant, no longer threatening. Snow dusted the balcony rails. Inside, warmth gathered without trying to be loud. Ren sat on the living room rug, lining up paper stars near the windows so the night can see them. Calder watched from the couch phone, turned face down, the last message from the interim board unread. It no longer defined him. "Do you think they'll be loud?" Ren asked. "Yes," Calder said. "But they won't hurt you." She nodded. "I know loud doesn't always mean bad." Calder smiled. He had learned the same lesson. Later, paperwork was signed quietly. No ceremony. Just signatures where they mattered. When the lawyer closed the folder, Ren looked up. "For real?" she asked. "For real," Calder answered. That night, Wren padded down the stairs in her pajamas blanket tucked under her arm. She climbed onto the couch without asking and curled into Calder's side like it had always been allowed. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "That's okay," Calder replied. She rested her head against his chest, listening. After a moment, she spoke, soft, deliberate. "Calder, yeah, sweetheart, can I call you?" "Dad." The word landed gently. No demand, no test, just hope offered carefully. Calder closed his eyes. The ache was there, of course it was, but it didn't drown him. It shared space with something else now. "Yes," he whispered. "You can." Wren smiled into his shirt. "Good night, Dad." "Good night," he said. "I'm here." Outside, the city counted down. Inside, a house held a quieter miracle. Calder walked past his late daughter's room once more and turned on the light, not to reopen grief, but to honor it. "I'm still your dad," he said softly to the quiet. "I just have more love now." He returned to the couch. Wren slept peaceful, certain. A man who had lost everything sat holding a child who had never had anything. Together, they built something neither had known before. A family not born but chosen. And this time it stayed. Did this story leave a lasting impression on you? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment, rate it from 1 to 10, and tap the end screen to see another heartwarming story waiting for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Until our next story.